catastrophizing cognitions can create just incredible difficulty. Okay. Catastrophizing cognitions usually begin with what if. And then it starts, for people with PTSD, it may start a process called looping. Okay? Okay, so I'll try and give you an example. The best one I have is this woman that I worked with, a client of mine, that she did a lot of catastrophizing. And so I asked her how it went for her, how she did it. And she said, well, today I was driving to work and I thought, what if my boss is unhappy with me? And it looped. What if I get a bad performance review? And then it looped again. What if I should lose my job? And it looped again to, what if I lose medical insurance? And then it looped again, and it kept looping over and over again. And with each loop, her level of anxiety came up another notch. All right. So here's a very simple rule I would ask you to consider adopting. Never, ever ask yourself a question that you don't answer. As soon as you hear a question, what if, then all other thinking stops and answer the question. Now, the torture for her, I said, yeah, that could make for a really difficult day. I mean, by the end of the day, you must be exhausted. And she said, no, it never stops. I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, I go to bed at night and I'm laying there and I go, oh, what if I forgot to lock the door? And what if I didn't put the battery in the smoke detector? And what if the house catches on fire? And what if I can't get the kids out? So you see how one loop leads to a greater and greater catastrophe. She would lay there for hours just looping one catastrophe over another. Then, this is what she told me. She said, then I wake up in the morning and my first thought is, what if I'm late for work? And the whole thing starts all over again. So the rule, the rule of thumb is never ask yourself a question you don't answer, okay? And there are some rules, guidelines for the answer. The answer can contain no other cognitive distortions. It has to be life-affirming. It has to be logical. And it has to be rational. So, what if my boss is angry with me? Okay, Ray said, stop all thinking, answer the question. Okay, let me answer. Well, if she is, I'll kill myself. Well, that's not logical and rational, and it certainly isn't life-affirming. So then it's like, oh no, that's not. And then she can go to another one, but never, and questions about yourself too. Why can't I ever do this right? Now, it's not really a question. That's a rhetorical question. All a rhetorical question is to generate emotion. Why can't I do this right? Why can't I ever do the right thing? Why can't I? So never ask yourself a question that you don't answer. Now, the other thing is, don't ever ask yourself this question. Is it possible? And then fill in the blank. Because the answer to that question is always yes. Because everything is possible. We need to start thinking in terms of probabilities. So I thought you might enjoy this, Archie. Sean taught this to some of her caseworkers, and the way she presented was this. In court, very often, attorneys will ask a defendant, is it possible, Mr. Giles, that you're mistaking about the guy's identity? Well, of course it's possible. So the only answer I can say is yes. But what this caseworker did when the lawyer asked her, is it possible, Mrs. Jones, that you're mistaking in your evaluation of the children? And her response was beautiful. She said, I don't think in terms of possibilities, because all things are possible. I think in terms of probabilities. The probability is very low that I'm making a mistake on this. So don't think in terms of possibilities. Is it possible I'll be kidnapped by aliens before this is over? Yes. What's the probability? High, medium, or low? Now, that isn't to say that low probability events don't happen, but they have a low probability. So I would encourage people, be careful about asking yourself this question. Is it possible that? Think in terms of probabilities. Think in terms of pie charts, continuums. That's to get that precision in your language and in your thinking. Now, the other thing I would suggest is, and people have a difficult time with this, and I'm not, I don't command things, I just suggest things. I would also suggest, and where are you? Who was it? Oh, it was Lucinda. I would also suggest that you remove from your thinking and from your evaluation of things, remove the words horrible, terrible, and awful, or hideous, monstrous, evil, grisly, ghastly, because our limbic system is going to respond to those. I'll give you an example too. This has come from a therapist. I ended up having to fire her. She was working with a little girl, and the little girl was probably about 9 or 10 years old, and she'd been sexually abused, molested, fondled by her grandfather. Now, she wasn't too upset about it because she didn't like it. It was uncomfortable. She wanted it to stop, So she tells the therapist about it, and I'm doing a videotape of this therapist when I was teaching counseling. And the therapist went, "My God, that's horrible." And the look on the little girl's face just was like, because to her it was uncomfortable, it was annoying, but when the therapist interjected that, it's horrible, it's terrible, it's awful. So I think that there are some things in the world that are truly horrible. The Holocaust was not unfortunate, it was probably horrible. But we began to use those terms in places where they're really not that appropriate. And so there's a lot of other terms we could use. It's disturbing, it's unfortunate, it's untimely, it's unkind, it's unhealthy, all kinds of different things. But when we start using those inflammatory words, then a situation that is uncomfortable, disappointing, et cetera, gets amplified. And now, and especially, it's like, if in my mind, Sean does something that I'm uncomfortable with or something that irritates me, if my thought is, it's horrible, the way she's treating me, I guess my reaction is going to be towards her. But if it's like, well, that's uncomfortable, that's unfortunate, that's then my emotions are come down. But with people with trauma, we're trying to get them to come down from the intensity of those emotions. So picking words, I think I have a whole bunch of them here in the workbook. I'll just give you an example. The minimization of feelings is, there's a whole list of words that go with that. And the favorite one in Vietnam was, "F it, man, it don't mean nothing." And that was a way to minimize the emotional impact of what we were going through, okay? But then we bounce all the way over to the horrible, terrible, awful, dreadful, disgraceful, humiliating, catastrophic, disastrous. Now we're amplifying those feelings. The manageability of feelings to describe those events might be sad, disturbing, strange, unfavorable. That was horrible.
The door, so we don't have that.
It was ineffective.
Yep. Totally was ineffective, but I didn't do anything. It just kicked me off.
That
Maybe
horrible
it didn't like what I
internet.
had to say.